We'll head now to the second round of questioning, which are a 2-minute round of questioning. And I know Senator Carper would be first, although if you wanted to relinquish your time and call on Senator Whitehouse.
Thank you. 2 minutes is short, so I'll try to be as quick as I can. I mentioned the May 5th day that you were going down to speak to the Republican fundraiser in Oklahoma. Do you recall off the top of your head right now whether you actually went to that? Do you remember what that day was for you?
I did not attend, Senator. We did, in fact, receive an ethics review of that, and I was actually authorized to go, but when the event was publicized, they did it incorrectly. And
would
that's
you
when
tell us what you actually did that day?
I'm sorry?
Would you tell us what you actually did that day and unblock your schedule?
Yeah, we'll provide the information pursuant to the
unredacted.
Schedule. That's something that we'll coordinate with this body.
Okay, because I don't see why you'd block out parts of your schedule, and that's all we have is the lunch.
And again, Senator, I did not attend that event, so the day could have been rescheduled entirely as far as the activities that day.
But you'd never know it because it's all redacted and blacked out. It's just bizarre that we don't see that.
We'll look and see how productive we were that day.
I'd appreciate it.
Yeah.
The second thing is that I had a request into you regarding the EPA scientists who were instructed not to speak and then withdrew themselves from the speaking role at the Narragansett Bay conference. You may recall that because it kicked up a big fuss in my area, and it even kicked up quite a national fuss as well because it was a patent case of scientists being told not to speak about something that they'd worked on for years. What you answered in response to our questions about that was, this will not happen again. And I'm delighted that this will not happen again. I think you're right that it should not happen again. What we have not been given is any explanation of how it happened. Who told whom what? Could you please, I mean, I don't know why this is hard to get an answer, but will you guarantee that you will tell us how that happened? And give us an actual explanation, looking back at why this happened, who told who what were the email chains, whatever the story was, let's get it out there.
And Senator, yes, in response to your other question, I'm advised by staff that that they did communicate to your office that I did not attend that event that you asked about. So,
great. So now the question boils down to unblocking your schedule for that day.
So we'll work on those issues.
Thank you.
Well, I'll take that as a very soft yes.
Thank you, Senator Whitehouse.
See how we go.
Senator.
And frankly, could be used to build consensus in this body. As you know, the Clean Air Act that was amended in 1990, as you look at it, many who were involved in that process recognize that CO2 was not part of the discussion under Section 111. So we have much work to do legally and procedurally, but this is still under consideration.
So it's my understanding that the White House has asked the agency not to go forward with the red team, blue team?
That's untrue.
So the public reports were incorrect?
In this instance, yes.
Thank you. Well, I will say that the perception of the red team, blue team was that your entire intention was to, on behalf of the Koch brother cartel, continue to mislead the American people about the very significant impacts of carbon pollution, casting doubt on established science, contrary to your contention that you like to listen to scientists. Is it, in fact, your sense that the scientific world is split down the middle on this question of whether carbon dioxide is warming the planet and causing significant damage in many ways to rural America, to our farming, to our fishing, and to our forests?
This idea of a red team, blue team exercise did not originate with me. It actually originated with a scientist from NYU called Steve Koonin, who actually worked for the Obama administration in the Department of Energy. So this is something that we're considering based upon that original publication in the Wall Street Journal.
Well, I'll be watching with interest whether you conduct it, if you do conduct it, because you're a year in and we haven't seen any evidence of, in a way that sheds additional information on important issues, as you suggested, or it's just another effort to confuse the public over well-established scientific information.
Senator Carper, do you have a final round of questions? And then I have one final question.
I do. I would ask unanimous consent, since no one else is going to come, to have 5 minutes to ask these questions.
You're welcome.
But reserving the right to object. Say that again.
Yeah. Since no one else apparently is going to arrive, I would ask that that I have 5 minutes to ask my last round of questions. And if Senator Inhofe would like to have another 3 minutes or so, that's fine by me, whatever time the chairman wants.
But since I've been at the other committee hearing, have you had your second round? Are you taking your second round?
No, I have not.
Taking a second round.
And you want to turn that into a 5-minute round?
I do.
I object.
Why, thank you. We have something called the Golden Rule.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Just for 20 seconds, if the gentleman would yield. I just checked with my staff, and there has been no answer to the questions which I posed to you, Mr. Administrator. So I would ask, again, to respond in a timely fashion.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr.
I was going to say, there's something called the Golden Rule that we're reminded of almost every Thursday when we gather in Senator Inhofe's office and meet with the chaplain of the United States Senate. And he reminds us to treat other people the way we want to be treated. And it's not only appropriate in a hearing like this, it's also appropriate when we're considering pollution that's put up in the air in states to the west of downwind states, including all of us who live on the East Coast. And to the extent that this EPA and this administration believes that the Golden Rule is a good idea, I would ask that you consider applying the Golden Rule when it comes to cross-border pollution. When I was governor of Delaware, I could literally shut down my state's economy. All the cars, trucks, vans off the road, shut down all of our businesses. We've still been out of compliance for clean air because of all the stuff that's put up into the air in other states. I don't like that, and frankly, I'm not sure I like being denied the opportunity to actually go from 2 minutes to 5 minutes when we have plenty of time.
Well,
No, I will not.
Mr. Chairman, since we've my name has been referred to, let me just respond and say that there are 4 committee hearings at the same time today. We're trying to balance, and if you continue one going longer, the ones you're punishing are the ones who have not had ample time to get even their first round of questioning in some of the other committees. So in sense of fairness, that's the reason I'd like to, there's got to be an end to this sometime.
Mr. Chairman, I want to ask unanimous consent to submit for the record the history of the Obama EPA's years-long process to address the Waters of the U.S. rule. This included hundreds of meetings across the country, including one in Delaware involving EPA, Army Corps of Engineers, farmers, and builders. And I think there were over 1 million public comments that were received during the course of years-long activity. And I'm told that those 1 million or so comments were actually responded to. The last thing I want...
Without objection.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have one more question I want to ask, and this deals with following the law implementing TSCA. Mr. Pruitt, you've said on numerous occasions that, and I quote you, the only authority that any agency has in the executive branch is the authority given to it by Congress, close quote. When Congress was negotiating the final text of the Toxic Substance Control Act, EPA came to Congress and asked for specific provisions that would allow the agency to move forward with bans for some uses of 3 highly toxic chemicals. Congress agreed, and that language was included in the final law. One of those chemicals, a paint stripper called methylene chloride, is so dangerous that it's killed dozens of people even when they were wearing protective gear. EPA proposed the rules banning these chemicals more than a year ago. But more recent reports indicate that EPA may delay action on the uses of these chemicals for several more years, which almost certainly will mean that more people will get sick and probably some of them will die. Yes or no, Mr. Pruitt? To wrap it up, will you commit to use the authority given to EPA by Congress in the Toxic Substance Control Act and finalize these bans within the next 30 days? Will you?
It's my understanding that's actually on the priority list as far as the chemicals that we're reviewing, TCE and others. So that's something that I will confirm and clarify with the agency, but that was my understanding.
I hope that means yes. Mr. Chairman, I would like to ask unanimous consent to submit for the record more materials describing Mr. Pruitt's record at the EPA. Thank you.
Without objection.